There's something magical about the first time we believed a man could fly. It was 1978, and audiences walked into theaters expecting another superhero adventure, but walked out witnessing movie history. Superman wasn't just a comic book adaptation. It was a cultural milestone that redefined what blockbusters could be. Directed by Richard Donner and starring Christopher Reeve in the role that would immortalize him, the film was ambitious in every sense. Groundbreaking special effects, an all-star cast, and a sweeping John Williams score that still gives fans chills today. But behind the polished heroics was a production riddled with chaos, strange coincidences, and jaw-dropping decisions that could have changed Superman forever. Today on Vintiverse, we're taking a deep dive into 20 weird facts about Superman 1978 you never knew. From secret cameos and disastrous stunts to bizarre casting choices that almost derailed the film. Before we fly into it, make sure to subscribe to Vintiverse for more forgotten stories and hidden facts about your favorite vintage movies. Now, up, and away. Number 20. Christopher Reeve wasn't the first choice, or the second, or the 10th. Christopher Reeve is now inseparable from the image of Superman, but back in 1977, nobody wanted him. At the time, Reeve was a 24-year-old unknown stage actor with zero film experience. The producers, terrified of banking a $55 million project on a newcomer, launched one of Hollywood's most chaotic casting searches in history. Names that were seriously considered: Robert Redford, Warren Beatty, James Caan, Burt Reynolds, even Sylvester Stallone. At one point, they floated Muhammad Ali as Superman for a more cosmic take on the hero. They even approached Neil Diamond, yes, the singer, for the role. Reeve only got the part after countless A-listers passed. And even then, Warner Brothers demanded he bulk up by 30 pounds before filming. He trained under bodybuilder David Prowse, the same man who played Darth Vader physically in Star Wars. The transformation worked. By the time cameras rolled, Reeve looked like he had been born to wear the cape.
Number 19. Marlon Brando tried to play Jor-El as a green bagel. Marlon Brando's casting as Superman's father, Jor-El, was huge and expensive. He was paid a whopping $3.7 million plus 11% of the profits for just 12 days of work. But here's where it gets weird. Brando initially suggested that Jor-El should be portrayed not as a man, but as a floating green bagel with a disembodied voice. Brando reportedly hated memorizing lines and despised wearing costumes, so his idea was to record his dialogue separately and let a bagel float on screen as Superman's father. Director Donner shut it down immediately, but Brando's eccentricity didn't stop there. He also insisted on reading his lines off cue cards, sometimes taped to baby Kal-El's diaper during filming. Despite the chaos, Brando's calm gravitas somehow worked on screen, making Jor-El one of the most memorable characters in the film. But behind the scenes, he was a nightmare for the crew, especially when it came to hiding food on set. Number 18. The flying scenes nearly bankrupted the production. "You'll believe a man can fly" wasn't just a catchy tagline, it was a promise. But in 1978, making Superman look like he was soaring through the skies wasn't easy or cheap. The production spent months experimenting with wires, catapult, and even giant rotating mirrors to simulate realistic flight. One failed idea involved strapping Christopher Reeve to a massive pole and tilting it while projecting clouds behind him. The effect looked ridiculous and nearly injured Reeve during tests. In desperation, the crew pioneered a process called Zoptic front projection, which combines carefully aligned projectors and lenses to create the illusion of real flight. It cost millions, but changed visual effects forever. The same tech later influenced scenes in The Empire Strikes Back. The gamble paid off. Audiences were stunned, critics were impressed, and suddenly every superhero film had to live up to Superman's soaring standard. Number 17. Gene Hackman refused to shave his mustache. Lex Luthor is remembered for his ruthless schemes and shiny bald head, but getting Gene Hackman to look the part was anything but easy. When Hackman signed on to play Superman's archenemy, he made it clear he wasn't shaving his mustache, a mustache he had grown for another role and had no intention of parting with. Director Donner pleaded with him, insisting the villainous look required a clean face. Hackman refused. Days passed, tensions grew. Finally, Donner devised a theatrical stunt. He barged into Hackman's dressing room, pulled out a razor, and without saying a word, began shaving his own mustache off in front of Hackman. Donner looked Hackman dead in the eyes and said, "Your turn." Embarrassed, Hackman gave in and shaved, but he drew the line at going bald. That's why Lex Luthor in the film isn't truly bald. Instead, Hackman wore a series of wigs that were intentionally styled to look like fake wigs. This added an unintentional layer of humor to the character, a vain criminal mastermind who can't even commit to his own villainous aesthetic. It's one of the many quirks that gave Hackman's Lex such a distinct personality, setting him apart from later portrayals of the character.
Number 16. The script was originally 500 pages long. Imagine walking into a movie pitch and being handed a 500-page script. That's what screenwriter Mario Puzo, famous for The Godfather, delivered for Superman. Puzo's original draft wasn't just a superhero movie, it was an epic saga spanning Krypton, Smallville, Metropolis, and beyond. It featured campy humor, odd cameos, including one by TV detective Kojak, and more subplots than most trilogies combined. The plan was to shoot Superman and Superman 2 back-to-back, using the massive script as one continuous story. But when Richard Donner came aboard as director, he was horrified by Puzo's campy tone and bloated structure. He famously declared, "We're not making Batman 66 here. This has to feel real." Donner and his creative team slashed and rewrote, stripping out jokes and focusing on Superman's mythic journey from Krypton to Earth. Still, remnants of Puzo's script remained. That's why Superman 2 feels like a direct continuation. It was literally born from the same draft. Even today, fans debate what might have been if Donner had kept more of Puzo's eccentric ideas. A film equal parts operatic drama and over-the-top comic book weirdness. Number 15. Christopher Reeve nearly quit after the flying tests. For most actors, wearing the Superman cape would be a dream come true. For Christopher Reeve, the early days of filming felt more like torture. The first flying tests were so crude that he spent hours suspended by piano wires, spinning uncontrollably while stagehands shouted directions. At one point, the wires snapped, dropping Reeve several feet and nearly injuring him. He reportedly walked off set and told producers, "You'll never make me fly again." The crew scrambled to fix the issue, eventually pioneering the Zoptic projection system that finally convinced audiences and Reeve himself that flight could look believable. Ironically, those grueling flying scenes became the movie's biggest selling point, with audiences stunned at how real they looked in 1978. Number 14. Margot Kidder beat out 100 actresses for Lois Lane. Lois Lane is more than just Superman's love interest. She's his anchor to humanity. But finding the perfect Lois in 1978 was no easy task. The role attracted over 100 auditions from Hollywood's rising stars, including Stockard Channing, Leslie Ann Warren, and even future Bond girl James Seymour. Each actress brought something different: sophistication, wit, or vulnerability. But none quite fit the sharp, fast-talking energy the producers wanted. When Margot Kidder walked into her audition, everything changed. Kidder, with her husky voice and natural playfulness, approached Lois not as a damsel in distress, but as a relentless journalist who could out-talk anyone, even Clark Kent. Her screen test with Christopher Reeve sealed the deal. Their chemistry was immediate, electric, and utterly believable. Director Donner reportedly shouted after the test, "We found her. That's Lois Lane." Kidder's performance gave the film its heart. Her Lois wasn't just a love interest. She was fearless, flawed, and human,
someone audiences could root for as much as Superman himself. Without her, the film's romance might have fallen flat.
Number 13. The Krypton scenes were almost cut for budget reasons. The sweeping crystalline world of Krypton is one of Superman's most striking visual triumphs, but it nearly never existed. In early drafts of the budget, Warner Brothers executives proposed cutting Krypton entirely to save millions. Their reasoning? We can tell Superman's backstory in a few lines of dialogue. Richard Donner fought this tooth and nail. He argued that Krypton was essential to framing Superman as more than a comic book hero. It was his mythic origin, his divine birthright. The alien cathedral-like architecture, the solemn farewell from Jor-El and Lara, the haunting music, all of it gave Superman's journey an operatic weight no other hero film had attempted. Building Krypton was a massive undertaking. The production team created sprawling crystal landscapes using acrylic panels, practical light refractions, and forced perspective sets. The expense paid off. Krypton became one of the most iconic locations in superhero cinema and set a visual standard copied for decades. Without it, Superman might have felt small and far less legendary. Number 12. Marlon Brando didn't bother learning his lines. Marlon Brando was one of the biggest stars in Hollywood, but by the time Superman was filming, he was infamous for being, let's say, difficult. On set, Brando refused to memorize his lines as Jor-El. Instead, he insisted on reading them off cue cards placed just out of camera view. Sometimes the crew taped his dialogue to baby Kal-El's diaper. Other times, they hid cue cards on walls, set pieces, or even other actors. Brando argued this kept his performance fresh, but it often frustrated director Richard Donner, who had to shoot around his improvisational tendencies. Despite the chaos, Brando's calm and regal delivery worked perfectly. Ironically, many fans consider his Krypton scenes among the most powerful moments in the film. Number 11. Glenn Ford filmed his entire role in just one day. Jonathan Kent's quiet death in the Kansas fields remains one of Superman's most heartbreaking moments. But what fans don't realize is that Glenn Ford, the actor playing him, filmed every single one of his scenes in just one day. Ford was a Hollywood veteran, known for classics like The Big Heat and Gilda. He was hired specifically for his gravitas, someone who could embody the moral backbone of Clark Kent in only a handful of moments. With a tight schedule, Ford arrived on set, filmed all the Smallville sequences back-to-back, and wrapped before most of the cast even met him. Despite the whirlwind schedule, Ford's presence left an indelible mark. His performance as Jonathan Kent grounded the entire first act of the film. His sudden death, punctuated by Clark's helplessness, set Superman's moral compass in motion. That this emotional anchor was filmed in under 24 hours is nothing short of miraculous. Number 10. Superman's costume was almost brown and gray. It's hard to imagine Superman without his bold red and blue suit, but early costume tests went in a very different direction. Concerned that bright comic book colors wouldn't translate well on film, the design team experimented with muted tones, including a strange mix of brown and gray. The result? A drab costume that looked more like a circus strongman than the world's greatest hero. Christopher Reeve reportedly hated the early prototypes. He argued that Superman's colors weren't just aesthetic, they symbolized hope and optimism. Without the bold red and blue, Superman lost his mythic presence. Test audiences agreed. The muted suit fell flat, feeling lifeless on screen. Eventually, the filmmakers returned to the classic comic design, though even that required special adjustments. The blue fabric had to be carefully chosen to avoid clashing with the blue screen technology used for flying scenes, and the S emblem was slightly redesigned for better visibility. In the end, the iconic suit we know today became one of the most recognizable costumes in film history. Number 9. Richard Donner was secretly fired mid-production.
Director Richard Donner was the creative force behind Superman's grounded, mythic tone. But while Superman 2 was still being shot back-to-back, Donner was secretly fired by the producers without telling the cast. The conflict boiled down to money and control. Donner constantly clashed with the producers Alexander and Ilya Salkind, refusing to make the campy slapstick version they wanted. Tensions hit a breaking point during post-production, and Donner found out he'd been replaced by Richard Lester by reading about it in the trades. The fallout was so intense that the Donner cut of Superman 2 wasn't released until nearly 30 years later, giving fans the director's original vision. It's still considered by many the superior sequel, and one of Hollywood's most infamous cases of creative sabotage. Number 8. Christopher Reeve flew over New York City without permission. To capture Superman flying over real locations, the crew filmed Christopher Reeve suspended from a helicopter and composited him into footage of New York City. The catch? They didn't have full permits for every location. At one point, Reeve was flown close enough to the Statue of Liberty and the Twin Towers that police were called fearing a security breach. The stunt was quickly shut down, but not before they snagged some of the most iconic aerial shots in the movie. Reeve later joked that he might be the only man to literally fly over New York without the FAA's blessing.
Number 7. Lex Luthor's lair had a rat problem. Literally. Lex Luthor's underground lair, with its flooded tunnels and Art Deco weirdness, might look like an inspired design choice, but the set was a nightmare to shoot on. The water-filled tunnels, built on a London soundstage, quickly became infested with rats during filming. Actors and crew reported seeing rodents swimming through the background during takes. At one point, Margot Kidder screamed mid-scene when one crawled up her leg. The solution? The crew quietly released cats onto the set at night to control the infestation, but then had to spend mornings chasing stray cats off camera before filming resumed. Hard to believe, right? And yet, it happened. Number 6. The helicopter scene almost ended in real disaster. Superman's most iconic moment is Lois Lane dangling from a crashing helicopter atop the Daily Planet. But few fans know just how dangerous filming that sequence really was. The helicopter used in the scene wasn't the lightweight prop. It was an actual decommissioned aircraft rigged for practical stunts. During one take, a cable snapped mid-shot, sending the mock helicopter swinging violently above the set. Margot Kidder, strapped inside, screamed for real as crew members scrambled to stabilize the rig. Richard Donner later admitted they were seconds away from a catastrophe. Afterward, stricter safety measures were put in place, and Kidder, visibly shaken, used that fear to fuel her performance. Ironically, the terror you see on Lois Lane's face in the movie, it's 100% genuine. Number 5. A real earthquake hit during filming. Superman's climactic race against time, reversing Earth's rotation to save Lois after a catastrophic earthquake, is pure movie spectacle. But during filming, life imitated art in a way that stunned the crew. A real earthquake struck while they were shooting the earthquake sequences. The crew was working on the meticulously crafted miniature sets used to simulate the ground-shattering disaster. These miniatures were engineering marvels, entire model highways and bridges rigged to collapse on cue with hydraulic systems and hidden explosives. In the middle of a test run, the soundstage suddenly rattled. At first, everyone assumed it was part of the effects. But seconds later, lights swung from the rafters, props toppled over, and someone shouted, "This isn't us!" The tremor was mild, but it freaked everyone out. For a moment, it felt like Superman itself was summoning the chaos it was depicting. Donner leaned into the surreal timing, joking to cast and crew, "If Superman shows up, we're putting him on payroll." The incident became one of those legendary Hollywood coincidences that crew members still talk about. A bizarre moment where reality and fiction collided, adding to the mythic aura that surrounded the entire production. Number 4. A Superman billboard accidentally spoiled the ending. Marketing for Superman was everywhere in 1978. Posters, billboards, TV spots. all building hype for the first true superhero blockbuster. But one piece of marketing caused an uproar, a billboard that accidentally spoiled the film's twist ending. The massive poster, placed in key cities like New York and Los Angeles, included a tagline hinting at Superman reversing time to save Lois Lane, a plot twist the filmmakers had kept secret even from many in the cast. Moviegoers who saw the billboard were puzzled, some even sending letters to Warner Brothers complaining that the reveal ruined the film's surprise. The studio scrambled to cover its tracks. Within days, replacement posters were rushed out, and crews worked overnight to swap out the spoiled billboards before opening weekend. But the damage had already been done. Industry insiders and gossip columns buzzed about the time travel Superman plot weeks before the premiere. Number 3. The Fortress of Solitude nearly bankrupted the movie. The crystalline Fortress of Solitude, Superman's icy sanctuary, is one of the most stunning sets in cinema history. But in 1978, building it nearly bankrupted the production. Richard Donner envisioned a massive alien cathedral made entirely of light and crystal. No matte paintings, no shortcuts. He wanted a practical set so actors could walk through it and audiences would feel transported to another world. The result was a 70-foot-tall, fully constructed fortress built on a soundstage in Pinewood Studios. The set required thousands of reflective acrylic panels carefully aligned to catch light from dozens of hidden spotlights. It was breathtaking, but outrageously expensive. The fortress alone cost nearly $2 million, blowing through the film's already strained budget. The producers were furious. Crew members whispered about shutting it down mid-build, but Donner refused to compromise. He said, "This is Superman's church. If we don't believe in it, neither will the audience." Number 2. Superman's time reversal ending was a last-minute rewrite. Superman reversing Earth's rotation to save Lois Lane is one of the most memorable and controversial endings in movie history. But here's the twist. It wasn't even supposed to happen in the first film. Originally, the time reversal ending was written for Superman 2. The first movie was meant to end with Superman hurling a missile into space, accidentally freeing General Zod and setting up the sequel. But production chaos, budget overruns, and Donner's firing forced the team to improvise. In a desperate bid for a more emotional climax, they lifted the ending from the sequel and slapped it onto the first movie, literally rewriting the finale while filming. This last-minute change left Superman 2 scrambling for a new ending, which is why its release and eventual Donner cut feels so different tonally. Fans still debate the science, or lack thereof, behind reversing time by spinning Earth backward. But one thing's certain, it was a bold, unforgettable choice born from sheer necessity. What's your favorite Superman 1978 behind-the-scenes fact? Share it in the comments. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Vintiverse for more nostalgic deep dives.
Number 1. Christopher Reeve's casting saved the movie and almost didn't happen. Looking back, it's impossible to imagine anyone but Christopher Reeve in the cape. But Reeve's casting was far from inevitable and almost doomed the film before it began. When Reeve auditioned, he was skinny, unknown, and completely overshadowed by the big names circling the role. Robert Redford, Burt Reynolds, James Caan, even Clint Eastwood. Producers wanted a superstar to justify the budget. Reeve? They barely glanced at him. But Richard Donner saw something no one else did. A perfect blend of innocence and quiet strength. He fought relentlessly to give Reeve a screen test, and when Reeve finally read opposite Margot Kidder, the chemistry was undeniable. "That's him," Donner whispered. "That's Superman." Which of these weird facts shocked you most? Did you already know about Brando's green bagel idea? Or the rats in Lex Luthor's lair? Drop your thoughts in the comments.
And don't forget to subscribe to Vintaverse for more deep dives into nostalgic movie history, because here, nostalgia always flies first class.